I'd like to ask a question. I made this bowl. I haven't got the slightest idea how much it costs. How much would you buy? How much would you sell this for?
Michigan. Anybody in Michigan?
Measure across the top, then multiply it by the depth, and I figure about and multiply it by $3.
Well, I've got across the top, I've got 7 inches. And I've got 3 inches high. And I got 2.5 inches deep.
According to that calculation, it'd be $63.
Yeah.
And it depends if that's about what I'd start at.
It's made out of walnut.
Yeah.
It depends upon the area, and if you're in a low area, that's about the right price. Add another $20 to it if you're in an area that'll pay it.
Yeah.
All right. You want to throw
What's the nearest major city, Dave?
This base is made out of oak. I mean, yeah, oak. I ran out of walnut. So I had
Well,
to
you're using
improvise.
those are common woods, so like the woods don't get you a premium unless they're spalted or burled. What major city are you close to, David?
Well, I'm not too far from you. I live in Walls Lake.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're in the Detroit area. All right. Sorry, I didn't know that, David. I thought you were on the west side of the state for some reason. We should get together and turn, man. Yeah, depending on your venue, you could go as high as 85 or 90 bucks.
Okay.
Depending on the venue.
I didn't know because I mean, it took me a long time to make it because I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to try to figure out different ways of how to get the layers in there, and then to be equally spaced out and everything else. So
If you're selling it online, and you have a fairly eclectic or a wide range of people that you're reaching, then you can ask a higher dollar amount. If you're selling it locally in a craft fair, then you're in the lower end of the dollar amount. So what's the inside like? What's your inside look like? All right, are there visible tool marks or flat spots anywhere?
You can see the shininess inside.
Yep. All right. So I think you don't have any detractions from that.
You can see the light coming through.
Yep. Well, so I don't. Where do you sell your pieces? Where do you usually sell them? How do you usually sell them?
I don't know. I've never tried to sell anything.
Okay. All right.
But I've got these orders, and I don't know how much to charge for them. That's what I'm asking.
Well, all right. Here's the deal. Okay, if you start at say $90, and the person says, "Oh, I don't know," then you can always say, "Well, since I'm early at this, I could discount you 10% or something." You follow what I'm saying? But if you start low, you can never raise the price.
Right. Only on the second one, right?
Yeah, right. Or if it's a friend or family or something. Actually, I charge my family more because
it sells too quick that you're too cheap, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's okay to go by measurements and things, and you're about right. But if you go by time, hours put in, it's about $2.68 an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
You'll never get your time back.
No, I know that.
Well, and there's an argument to be made that time is not a very good meter to use to justify price, because some of us can turn a bowl in 15 minutes, and some of us will take 2 hours to turn a bowl. You know what I'm saying?
That's me.
So,
I take a long time doing it.
Me too.
Right, and that's fair. That's fine, but it's not a good metric to measure how much the bowl is worth. If you're talking like a bowl has a cap in the market, because there's a lot of wood bowls out there. You know what I mean? So people will only pay so much. I mean, for segmented, you'll get more, of course, but yeah.
Not to mention, we're competing with with sweatshops in Southeast Asia that crank out 30 bowls per person per day at cents per hour.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, go to
Well-
Walmart. See the-
Yeah, what David has got showing you right there, he said he's got that poly in there for some accent and some sparkle and some, that is specialized work, folks. That's not, you're not going to get that from one of the third world nations. And you've got some personality in that piece. Now, if I was marketing that, and I am the son of one of the world's greatest marketers ever, I would make up a good story about the wood and the fill and the sparkle and things like that, and write it out early and put it on a 3x5 card right next to the piece when you're demonstrating it, so everybody knows the real story. And remember, it's your story. They can't question you. You're the author. So, but market it properly, and do that with anything you're selling. If you got the chance to use wood that came off of a tree that was knocked down by a storm that was caused by such and such, I mean, it's called spin, and it works in every business. I mean, do you ever see a dirty car in a car commercial? No. So,
Captain, let me add just one thing here, and I try not to get on my soapbox, but sometimes I have to when we start
on it.
talking about pricing and the Asian stuff. I was a photographer for 30 years. We charged over $100 for an 8x10. You could go down to Eckerd's or Walgreens at the time and pick up one for 58 cents. The reality is somebody that's going to go down and pick up one for 58 cents is not the customer that's going to pay $100+ for one. It's the same with what we do, guys. The people that are going to go down to Walmart and Target and buy the $5 wooden bowls out of Asia are never going to buy your bowls. Forget about that. Ignore that. Do not use that in your pricing, because those are not your customers. If you price your 16-inch bowl at $50, they're still not going to buy it because they're not your customer. So price your products, price what you make for what it's worth. And when the customer comes along, that's the right customer for that product, they're going to buy it. At this last show, I had a pear bowl. I believe it was marked to $140. That particular bowl had been on the shelf of every craft show I've done in the last 4 years. A lady turned, she looked at my booth, she walked straight over to it, picked it up, looked at it, never turned it upside down to see what the price was. She goes, "This is mine, it's going home with me." She set it down on the table by me, reached over, picked up a cross and said, "I want this too." Never asked how much either one of them was. I rang it up, told her, she swiped her credit card and left out of there just giddy as she could be.
okay, can I get her last name again one more time?
Yeah. I've had those, but
Hey, is there like a formula that you can start?
There's a
say-
lot of folks that use formulas on bowls, and it'll be the width times the height times whatever, 2, 3, 4, a lot of
Root of
people do
3.
2.5. But really, the best thing to do is look at your market and see what your market will bear. Go to one of these shows, look at some of the turners, see what their stuff is selling for, and then look realistically at what they're selling and look realistically at what you're making. Is it as good? Is it better? Is it about the same? That would give you a rough starting place, not a final price. But pricing is probably one of the most difficult things to do when you're dealing with art type stuff. And I know not all of us consider ourselves artists, but it is something we create. So there is no magic formula that says, okay, this bowl, this by this by this is this price. Because you may have a piece of wood that you picked up out of the ditch, and you got another piece of wood, you just paid $85 for that piece of wood. Are those bowls worth the same amount? If you measure them like that, they are. But the reality is, you know, a red burl from Australia, if you're here in the States, is worth a whole lot more than an oak bowl that you cut off your tree in your front yard. I'll
Remember
try
when
to
you-
be quiet, Captain. Y'all go ahead.
No, Dean, you hit it right on the head. You really did. I've always had this thing. I have an internal value list with me, and
Yeah.
mine sits right here, right on my heart. Cause I quit selling my items a long time ago. Only cause it caused it didn't make me feel good. I didn't need the money for selling the pieces, but it made me feel better if I gave them away.
I've seen so many folks that make things, woodworkers especially, that say you can't get anything for your time. Folks, you stop and think about it. There is not a single solitary thing you own that you didn't pay for with time. Whether you spent time at the job to make the dollar to buy it, you still paid for it with time. And the reality is, we all just have a certain amount of it. So don't give away your time unless it makes you feel good to give it away.
Yeah.
And remember, when you see things in a gallery with $100 on them, the gallery's getting 50.
Yes.
Yep. One of the things, I sell most of my stuff online, okay, through Facebook or other means. And one of the best things I did to help me with prices was I would go on Etsy and I would do a search for similar pieces and see what people who had a lot of pieces on their Etsy were selling things for, and use that as sort of a benchmark and make exactly what Dean said. I would make an assessment based on similar sort of mechanisms. So, you look at, say, okay, exactly what Dean said, is my piece roughly the same size? Is it better or worse? And you got to try to be objective and give yourself a good analysis of what you're working on, how your piece measures up. And the more I look at your piece, David, and I've seen some of the green and some of the lighting, it's not all that easy. I would up my estimates. So
that's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, if you go into a decent art fair or something where there's a lot of traffic, maybe you could get $125 for it. So, you could always come down in price. If it's not selling and you get towards the end of the day, maybe not $20 off of it or something. But
I think when you come up with a price for something, you've got to take into account lots of factors, including the time. Because if you're trying to approach this commercially, and you're working on the basis that if I was doing this for a living, I'd need to earn enough in my working week to pay the bills, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So if that bowl took me half of my working week, then I need half of the income I need for that week for that bowl. So to put it in sort of simple terms, so if a bowl takes you an hour, work out how many hours you're working a week, and it's an hour's worth at that rate to get to the point where you're getting the income you need. But as far as using formulas, I do on some bowls, but when you're working out the price of a bowl, I work on the assumption that the diameter of the bowl, basically it's an exponential relationship. You double the diameter of the bowl, you've got 4 times the area and 4 times the volume. So you've got 4 times as much wood rather than twice as much, just because you doubled the diameter. So you've got to bear that in mind. You buy wood by volume. So if you buy a bowl twice the width, it's 4 times as much wood. So bear that in mind as well. But it's easy to price things too cheaply as well.
that can turn off a customer as easily as pricing it too high. What they call perceived value. You look at something, you in your head, you think that's worth $100 or whatever it is. If it's on sale for 50, you're sort of thinking, what's wrong with it? Why isn't it $100? Why is it only 50? So that can turn you off as a buyer, just as easily as if it was 150 when you think it should be 100. So it works both ways. So you've got to try and price things carefully, but yeah, factor in your time, definitely. You can't, I mean, if you're trying to do this realistically and make a serious income from it, then you have to work on all of those things, plus your overheads, plus selling costs like gallery commissions, etc. So there's a lot of things to take into account.
Okay. Thank you very much for the advice and thank you for your time.
You're quite welcome. It'll look good looking work though. Very nice work.